Hello everyone. Hope you all had a wonderful weekend. I'll wait till we connect to you. Hi guys, thank you so much for joining us today and hope you all had a wonderful weekend. I'll wait for a minute till we connect to more people. Alright, thank you so much everyone for joining us today. As informed you guys earlier, we have a very special guest today. Her name is Donna Mazzola, and she's a pharmacist with the passion of natural health and preventive care. She is a functional medicine expert. Her mission is to help others identify the root cause of disease and create the balance between nutrition and medicine. Well, that's the reason why we are having this fabulous session today, the most awaited session with Donna, MS and nutrition. I know that many of you have lots of questions about nutrition, so be ready and start asking your question one by one. Hi, good morning.
Hi, good afternoon over here.
Oh, sorry. Good afternoon. I have a habit of saying good morning to everyone, in US.
Oh yeah. It doesn't matter, I guess. Good day is what it is.
Yeah, I should change my greeting to good day now. Well, thank you so much, Donna, for joining us today. We saw your profile and we had this teaser on our page and everybody was actually waiting for this session. So,
Great. I'm excited.
so nutrition is a topic that everybody has lots of questions about, concerns about. And
Yes.
when one is suffering with autoimmune disorder, then of course that's a question that comes first in the mind.
Yes.
Um, so Donna, firstly, before we start about talking about more about nutrition, would you like to share your interest and why did you get this interest about medicine and what's your background with regards to autoimmune disorder?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you had stated, I am a pharmacist. I've been a pharmacist for over 15 years now. And through my practice, well, actually, I should go back and say through school, learning about management of chronic disease, it really hit a trigger point for me in understanding and realizing that chronic disease can really be prevented and the implications of lifestyle modification are huge, but we don't focus on that in conventional medicine training. So a lot of times when I hear people say, well, my doctor never told me that, I almost don't blame the doctor because they're not trained that way. That's just not the way the system is set up, unfortunately. So I've always had that interest and passion and knew I wanted to go back to school. And in 2015, I was personally diagnosed with autoimmune condition, Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune disease of the thyroid gland. And because that kind of tipped me over the edge, because I started reading and researching because at this point it was affecting me personally, and I realized there was so much that I did not know as it relates to lifestyle modification and diet and nutrients and stress and just everything that impacts autoimmune disease. And I was blown away. So I didn't know what resources I could trust, what was reputable, what was not. So I decided to go back to school. And so I obtained a master's degree in human nutrition and functional medicine. And through that journey of learning, I started Dr. Autoimmune Girl. And basically, as you said, the mission was started to just share information, because if I was learning to better control my disease, I wanted to make sure I shared that information out to others to help them and empower them. And so that's kind of where we are at today.
Absolutely. I understand the journey of you getting into functional medicine must be a different being in the shoe of a patient yourself.
Yeah.
That's a different, being a doctor is different, but when you are in the shoe of a patient, you see things from a different perspective.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So, since you are an expert, Donna, would you like to tell a little about the relationship of diet and autoimmune disease that you must have studied about and personally experienced yourself?
Yeah, of course. So, when we think about diet, there's a couple components I like to focus on. And the first one, kind of the most important, when we think about autoimmune diseases, we think about them as inflammatory conditions. And when we think about diet, you know, this inflammation is a key factor in a lot of our westernized diets.
Yes.
The processed foods, the chemicals that are added, the convenience food, as I like to put them. I don't even call it food, I call it food-like substances. And so those in and of themselves create an inflammatory process. So having, you know, that inflammatory process from food can lead to reduced gut integrity, right? And so a lot of you probably have heard of leaky gut.
Yes.
That's really what's happening is we're breaking down that barrier. You're causing these food antigens to leak into your system to create this chronic inflammation all the time. And
Right.
so you might have a genetic predisposition to an autoimmune condition, but having that inflammatory component never turn off is what's
Mm.
turning on that gene and essentially leading to the full-blown development of an autoimmune disease.
Right.
And if you continue down that route, exposing yourself to those inflammatory foods, that disease is just going to get worse. And so I like to explain to people that an autoimmune disease is on the spectrum. And so it's progressive. So
Yes.
you can slow or delay that progression by the things that you decide to do, like eat and how, you know, lifestyle management, things like that.
Mm.
Or you can ignore it, eat what you want, fast food, convenience food, things like that. You're going to see that progression escalate, and you're going to, as a result, see the disease, you know, much worse from that point.
Absolutely. So you have the key of your health in your hands. It's up to you. You really want to, turn it around, or you just want to stick to where you are. So it's all up to you, right? Absolutely. So Donna, so I understand that when someone has MS or any other autoimmune disease, they are put on any kind of medications or DMTs. But if someone goes for a natural diet, do you think someone can, control their symptoms 100% with diet, or still they need to have a balance between the medicines and the diet?
So everybody's different. So I'll
Yes.
start with that.
Yes.
So can it happen? Is it possible? Yes. Can it
Okay.
happen for every person? It depends. It depends on how strict you're going to be. So it's not easy also to follow a
Oh,
completely anti-inflammatory elimination diet 100% of the time. If you are able to do that, then I would say yes, you most likely probably can get off medications. You can really slow and delay that progression of disease and almost put it into a remission. But of course, those exposures, if they occur again, you're going to kind of reactivate, and that's where you'll kind of see that inflammatory response come back. So that's why I always say it's a balance, because not every person can do that. I know it myself personally. I mean, yes, you have your week, you're on vacation, somebody's birthday, whatever it may be, you're going to have those moments where you are going to eat those inflammatory foods, and that's okay. You know, it's like this is life, right? That's
yeah.
totally okay. And so for those that do need to be on medication but recognize the importance of anti-inflammatory foods and diet, you can reduce that dose. You can bring that down as much as possible. Like the goal always in my mind is what I tell people is to delay the progression. That's it. That's your, because this is something you're going to have um, essentially forever. I mean, we're stuck with it, right?
Yes.
And so we
Yes.
want to delay that progression, and we also don't want to turn on more autoimmune diseases. So once you're
Absolutely.
yeah, once you've developed one, you're at a higher risk for developing multiple autoimmune diseases. And so by keeping on that chronic inflammatory response, then you're increasing the chances of the development of additional autoimmune diseases.
Oh, oh my God. So one has to know their body and what suits them, and just, go for the right kind of food. And like you said, no one is like, you could term it like a saint, not have any kind of cheat days or something. It happens that on certain occasions you tend to go for certain things, but mostly you should stick to something which is healthy. So when
Yeah.
it comes to healthy diet, so what are the things that you say that we should avoid? What are the most inflammatory substances that people are usually taking on the daily basis?
Yeah, so you know that my two immediate ones that I go to and kind of alert people to are gluten and dairy. People don't want to hear that because then, gosh, that's like eliminating everything. But at the end of the day, gliadin, which is a protein within gluten, is highly inflammatory. And a lot of it also, people beg the question is it gluten or is it the pesticides that are sprayed onto it that are creating these reactions? And it could be both, but regardless, it still has a highly inflammatory component. The other factor of it is in modern day today, the bread and the whatever, that's we're incorporating gluten to, what they're doing when they're manufacturing and processing these foods is they're adding even more gluten. So it's like our body is being exposed to a significant level that it doesn't even know how to break it down and digest it. And it creates this inflammatory component. And, I tell people, do it, eliminate it and see how you feel. And I've never had anybody say that they didn't feel better. Every single person that's ever tried to eliminate gluten immediately says oh my gosh, I didn't have any bloating. I felt better. All these GI symptoms went away. Well, there you go. That's telling you right then and there that that's an inflammatory food for you. And then the other one is dairy. And quite honestly, I kind of laugh about dairy because I'm like, you're basically drinking a cow's breast milk. It's kind of gross when I think about it. Do we really need it? That's at the end of the day, most people after the age of 7 actually have an intolerance to dairy, to lactose. Most adults, I think it's around 70 or 80% of adults are lactose intolerant. They can't even break it down. But you're exposed to it and you're consuming it so often that the symptoms that you experience, they become normal. And so people are like, oh yeah, I tolerate dairy just fine. But that bloating, it just becomes a normal part of life. And they don't even think about it until they actually practice a full elimination diet and take those things out. And they realize, well, wait, that's not normal. I shouldn't feel that way. That actually just recently happened to somebody I know who would make cheese boards and eat them all the time. And she removed dairy for a short period of time. And then she brought it back and she's like, but I've never had problems. I don't understand what's going on. And it's like, well, you were probably just used to the problem. And you never realized it until you took it away and brought it back. And then it actually opened your eyes to it.
That's what, one should know their body, and especially a person who's suffering with a chronic disease or autoimmune disease like MS. You don't know, but you are still going on eating something which is actually causing you harm. That's very correct. And okay, if you don't mind, can I just start taking a few questions?
Yeah, I see them coming in.
So I can see one charming desert rose has written, so does frozen foods also fall in this category?
Yeah, frozen foods are pretty processed. So they're high in sodium, and most of them are processed in some way. So I will tell you, if you can look at the ingredient list and you can read every word on there clearly and understand exactly what it is, and it's real food, then okay, you're probably fine. But I can guarantee you'll look at that box and you're not going to understand if they don't sound like real food, then it's not good for you. I'll just keep it simple.
What's your opinion about the frozen fruits? So people usually buy frozen fruits to make smoothies and other things.
Frozen fruits actually is a little different. So that's real food, and they actually have higher nutrient because they're picked right at the point when they've now I'm blanking on the word. Developed. I can't think of the word. But they're picked right at the point, right at the most perfect time, and then they're frozen immediately, as opposed to being picked and then transferred and then sitting in the grocery store, and then you get them where they slowly start to lose their nutrient content. So actually, frozen fruits is a really good method for smoothies and things like that. I highly recommend.
Okay, and I have a question by Claire. Claire, I have to say thank you for arranging this session with us today. So she has a question. She's written, what type of pizza or burgers are there any kind of plant-based, and how do you cook them? Do you have any opinion about that? Suggestion about that?
About burgers, that was said?
Pizza or burgers can be
pizza or burgers. Yeah, you can get gluten-free dough and make pizzas. I do that. I have gluten-free dough and dairy-free cheese. But again, you need to look at what are in those ingredients as well. There's some dairy-free cheeses that are awful. They're full of chemicals. You can just read it. And then there's some that are really clean, and it's strictly made from plants and nuts, and that's it, spices, and you know that those are clean ingredients. So I think the bottom line with all these questions is read food labels, and if you can't understand it, then don't consume it. And when you're thinking about processed foods, there's been several studies that look at sodium intake, specifically with MS, and high levels of sodium actually lead to a worsening progression of disease in MS. And so going back to frozen foods and packaged foods that are high in sodium, probably not a good idea with this disease.
Okay. My next question is from Glorious, and he has written, what about nightshade vegetable?
Yeah, so nightshade, everybody's different with nightshades. So yes, nightshades can have an inflammatory component to them, and some people may react, but some people may be perfectly fine. So I always suggest the same thing, like you have to figure out what's right for you. And
Yes.
so eliminating, if you want to see how your body responds to nightshades, eliminate them completely. Always give yourself at least 21 days, because that's how long, that's basically the half-life of the antibodies in the gut. So basically we know after 21 days, if your body is producing antibodies against a certain food antigen, it'll take, and then you remove that food, it'll take 21 days for that antibody level to come down. So at that point, if you reintroduce it and you get a reaction, then you know that you have a sensitivity to that food. So that's why I always say a minimum of 21 days, 28 is even better. But eliminate the foods and try it for yourself. Some people say, oh, well, can I do a food sensitivity test? You can, but I don't always recommend those. I think they can be a waste of money, in my opinion, sometimes, because what's going to happen is, so as we talked about, if you have that gut permeability, and you have these antibodies that are being produced against food antigens, right, that you're being exposed to, those foods that you eat all the time are going to show up positive on a test like that, because you just have a leaky gut, period. Yes. So the standard is an elimination diet. Obviously, it's harder. Sometimes people just want a test to tell them what to do. But taking the time and just it's temporary. It's 30 days. Try it, do it, and then reinitiate foods to see how you respond.
All right, thank you. My next question is from MS Warrior NZ, and he's written, can we get off hypertension medications through changes in nutrition?
Absolutely. I've seen that happen all the time. And, it's a matter of changing your diet, exercising, reducing stress is also a big one for anybody with hypertension. But any chronic diseases, I've seen people with diabetes completely get off medication and normalize their diabetes. So yes, I think the answer here is earlier is better, tackling things early on versus waiting 20, 30 years or that you want to make that change. And follow up with your doctor, have your levels checked and see where you're at. But it absolutely is possible, and it's happened many, many times.
All right. So Donna, my next question to you is about what kind of diets do you recommend? Do you recommend plant-based diets, or do you also recommend that someone can have non-veg as well? I'm pertaining to the question that someone has written, what about eggs? Are they good source of protein? So a person with MS should be just plant-based, or the other thing should also be included?
So I don't follow or recommend any extreme diets. My recommendation is always to eat real food. Okay. And that's the simple recommendation to make. I'm not against animal protein. I guess it's your preference if you do or don't consume animal protein. But protein is important, because when we think about our detoxification system, like our liver, I always tell people, we're equipped with a natural detoxification system in our body. So you're exposed to pollution or whatever, our body is equipped to clean that stuff out. Absolutely. And that's with your liver, okay? So you have two steps to that. You have the first step and the second step. And phase 2 of that detoxification requires a lot of protein. And so if you're not consuming enough protein in your diet, then you're not able to break down and eliminate those foods or toxins or whatever they may be, and therefore they just start to accumulate in your body. So protein is important. So if you're going plant-based, you need to make sure you're still getting enough protein in your diet, be through
Okay.
legumes or whatever. But my biggest takeaway for diet is, like I said, eat real food and try to focus on 9 to 12 servings of fruits and vegetables a day of a variety of colors. So eat the rainbow and eat it 9 to 12 servings. Sounds like a lot, but if you incorporate salads and smoothies, you pretty much can get there before you even hit dinner, if you do it that way. But incorporating proteins, eggs is fine. Like personally, I have egg allergy. So ensuring that number one, you don't have an allergy to it, then yes, it's fine. So it's all about listening to your body. I can't give any blanket statement of a certain diet, but my biggest takeaway is to just eat real food.
All right. Just eat good food, eat simple food, eat healthy food.
Yeah,
Stay away from sodium, from sugar, from packaged food. Yeah.
exactly. Sugar. That's a big one we wanted to talk about too.
Right. So, like you said, that we have to wait for 21 days to 28 days and notice how any kind of food is reacting to your body. And that's how you know that how the food suits you. Connecting to it, following to it, I have the other question asking, what are the effects that trigger your symptoms? I mean, how can you know that this particular food is not suiting you? Is it
Yeah.
kind of bloating, or what kind of symptoms a person
Yeah, it's primarily will be GI symptoms, but can you get headaches? Absolutely. Can you get extreme fatigue all of a sudden after you consume it? Yes. Can you get joint pain? Yes. So you have to think about it as it's an inflammatory process that's occurring. So inflammation can lead to all these symptoms. So yeah, of course you can have potentially diarrhea and gas and cramping and bloating. And that's a local response, right, in the gut, because that's where you just put the food. But then you also can have a systemic inflammatory response, and depending on how sensitive you are, as I said, you can all of a sudden, after you consume it, feel really tired. And that happens to a lot of people with gluten, especially when they do an elimination diet and they bring it back in, then they eat it and they're like crashing and they're like, why am I so tired? And it's like, oh, it's probably the gluten. So those are inflammatory responses. So do you just suddenly get a headache? You suddenly get tired? Are you like, is it all of a sudden like you feel like, oh, my joints hurt? Like even opening and closing my hands like that is painful. Yeah, so those are all of the inflammatory response.
Right. I have seen, people complaining that even though legumes are a good source of protein, when they have legumes, they feel very fatigued. Probably this is
Yeah.
the reason why it's not suiting them. That's absolutely
Yeah,
right.
with legumes, so that's a good question. I see somebody has, so legumes, technically, they shouldn't be inflammatory, but they can cause an inflammatory reaction if you have a leaky gut, a predisposing gut. So in an elimination diet, I always recommend removing legumes, healing the gut, sealing it, right? So we're going to heal and seal it, remove those, and then try to reintroduce them. And it all depends on how we cook them, soaking them,
Yes.
Sprouting. It's all in the method. But then once we've healed the gut and reintroduce legumes, you shouldn't have inflammatory reaction to them. If you still do, then obviously you have to continue. But I've seen a lot of people be able to reintroduce legumes by doing that.
Okay. Okay. All right. I have a question by Debbie. He's written, what food to avoid for alopecia areata? I'm not sure of this term. If you can just say.
Yeah, alopecia areata, so it's kind of like hair loss. It's an autoimmune condition that leads
All
to.
right.
And at the end of the day, it's going to be the same thing, anti-inflammatory diet. So with any autoimmune disease, there's not a specific diet for each one. But as I said, by understanding that autoimmune diseases are inflammatory in nature of themselves, like that's just the pathophysiology of disease, then following an anti-inflammatory diet is going to negate that. Okay, so what we had said is, doing an elimination diet, avoiding those foods, seeing if your symptoms improve. Like you really have to take the time in and listen to your body to see how you respond to that.
Right. Are ginger and turmeric anti-inflammatory?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Highly recommend those.
So in India, like I'm from India, and we have turmeric and ginger in almost everything.
Yeah, yeah. You guys have it. You guys are right about that one.
But we also have gluten at the same time in everything.
Yes. You
So
guys
I've
do that to
started.
balance it out. You're balancing it out.
Absolutely. But what I have personally started doing is that I've removed wheat from my diet, but have added quinoa instead.
Hmm.
So, which, I can enjoy my chapatis and parathas, but with a different substance, and not
Yeah.
veg.
Yeah, absolutely. Like there's, and it's easier these days because there are a lot of substitutes to grain-based foods that allow you to still enjoy those foods.
Okay. So Donna, what is your opinion about fasting? Like we have so many kinds of fasting nowadays. Intermittent fasting, then we have water fasting or 2 or 3 days
Yeah.
fasting. Is it also personalized person to person or can anybody follow it?
So it is a specific person to person. If I'm going to make kind of a blanket statement about fasting, fasting does reduce inflammation, reduce chronic inflammation. So it is good in that. It helps regulate blood sugars as well. It just basically gives your system a chance to to recover, right? So if you're
Mhm.
constantly feeding it, you're not giving your body, your gut,
Rest.
right? Any rest. It's just constantly digesting and working. So you give it a chance to just take a break. And that's
Yes.
important, right? And that's why, like, it's the same way, like, we need sleep. Our body needs to regenerate. Same thing with our gut. So fasting is great. A lot of people feel really good on it.
Mhm.
But I think you got to figure out what that window is. Most recommend like a 16-hour fast and eating in an 8-hour window period. For some people, that doesn't work. Like personally, for me, I found like a 13, 14-hour fast works better. It doesn't put as much stress on the body. Like it kind of, especially if you have hypothyroidism, it can impact your thyroid if you're fasting for too long. It
Right.
can put too much stress on it. So just try it out and see how you feel. I know a lot of patients who do it and they do it all the time, and then others who have found, this is too much. I actually felt like I got worse. And
Mhm.
so it's trial and error. But overall, if you think about the benefits of fasting are very good.
All right. I have a question here saying if that many fruits and veggies give me diarrhea, can I substitute it with vitamins? So every autoimmune disease person or MS people that we to nowadays are taking lots of multivitamins on a daily basis. So you
Yeah.
think, and they be a replacement of the veggies and fruits, or they have to be taken additionally? And if yes, then what kind?
So I always recommend food first, and there's a reason for that because the nutrients and the polyphenols that exist in a plant, when you eat them together with other plants, and then you eat the entire component of the plant, the leaf, the stalk, whatever, your that synergy that occurs between the plants is giving you like this added benefit. When you're taking a supplement or a vitamin, there's only one component that's extracted from that and put into a pill form. So you're not getting that synergistic benefit that occurs when these plants get together and like you consume them.
Right.
And so that's the part that you're missing out. So I always recommend from food first. If you cannot, or if you need an added boost, then yes, a multivitamin to help ensure that you're getting those essential nutrients is fine. But substituting it completely, like I'm going to eat like crap, but I'm going to take my supplements, not doing
It
anything for
doesn't
you.
work that way.
Nope, it doesn't work that way. There's no magic supplement that's going to help you.
Convenience is good, but not all the time.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
All right. So one question I have by Ms. Warrior Sensei, and he's talking about something which is, the entire world is fighting with, which is about COVID. So he's asking if you have any kind of advice on what one should eat when battling with COVID.
When battling with COVID, well, I mean, again, inflammation is what you want to keep under control. So we know as COVID kind of escalates out of control and this extreme cases, you get an immune dysregulation and you get an increase in inflammatory cytokines and just an increase in inflammation. So with COVID, then in my mind, from a food standpoint, you want to reduce inflammation. You want to nourish your immune system to be able to fight off the virus. So things like ginger and turmeric are really good in order to do that, you know, and to just kind of help your body to recover. You want to support your immune system in order to do so. And that's the key. So you want to give it, again, same thing, the foods, the nutrients, all those things that it needs to support our immune system so that our immune system can do its job.
Right. So whatever happens, you know, your food has to be good. Your food can really, really, you know, bring you back to
Food
good
is
health.
medicine. Yeah.
Yes, food is medicine. Absolutely. It can take you off your existing medicines.
Yeah.
You know, when this COVID had started in 2020, the sale of turmeric and ginger went like swooping
Yeah.
high, especially in India. We already consume a lot of turmeric, and
Yeah.
now it became double and triple the
Wow.
consumption.
Yeah, I believe it. I believe it. It's funny because I always put turmeric, fresh turmeric root, like just a chunk of it in my smoothie every day, and just to reduce inflammation. And I will give you just like an anecdotal patient example myself. You know, I had my antibodies checked for Hashimoto's and they were pretty high. They were over 1,000. No, they were over 2,000. Sorry. And I was
My God.
drinking this smoothie every day for 6 weeks where I would put a chunk of turmeric in it. And my antibodies in 6 weeks came down to 700. So antibodies are a reflection of inflammation in the body, right? We're using those as a
Yeah.
marker. And taking that anti-inflammatory turmeric daily and fresh root, like you don't have to go buy the expensive turmeric supplement. Like turmeric is so cheap. Like
Yeah.
I buy like a whole hand, like 2 handfuls of it for like 75 cents, right? Like it's so cheap. And it has so many benefits.
So, yes, we understand that you should eat something to get its benefits, but do you think there is a full stop or a limit to something as well? Because sometimes what happens when you say, okay, this thing can help you with this kind of condition, and you tend to overdo it. Like I'm telling you about turmeric. So, how
Yeah.
can one
So,
know that there has to be a full stop?
you know, overdoing anything is bad. So anything in excess is not a good thing, right? Everything has to come in balance. And so yeah, I mean, I don't know that you can overdose on turmeric, fresh turmeric, but I can't imagine that you're going to eat it. Like, how much can people possibly eat? But recognizing that overdoing something, anything in excess is bad.
Yeah. So, okay. So you already, I mean, told about that you have been having turmeric in your smoothie and taking, and your body levels dropped drastically. So I'll just read out this question by Indigo, and it's written, any thoughts about some data showing metformin and reducing antibody levels in Hashimoto's?
So that's an interesting question. And it's possible because of the fact that metformin can balance hormones. So we see metformin used for PCOS, and we see with many women with Hashimoto's, those that have a challenge. So our hormones don't work in silos. They all work together. So whether it's your sex hormones, your thyroid hormones, your stress hormones, they're all working together. And so because metformin has that ability to balance our sex hormones, it can have a indirect impact on thyroid. So that's pretty interesting. Another supplement that actually has shown to do this, and I kind of think about it as like the natural metformin, is inositol. That there are actual studies that it does reduce antibodies in Hashimoto's, and that in combination with selenium, there's some really good data on that. But when you think about what the mechanism is behind that, it's very similar to metformin. So it's kind of like a natural metformin. So yeah, that's a pretty good question. I'm actually going to look to see if like there is. So thank you for that, because I am going to dig a little deeper on that one. I like that.
So, Donna, I have to say this is such a fabulous session, and can you believe it? We have been talking for almost 35 minutes. It seems like we just started.
Wow.
So, I'm going to take a couple of more questions and tell you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a question from Claire again, asking about how many cups of tea can someone drink per day? I have cut back, and my bladder is thankful for it. I drink herbal tea only and stop all cups by 3 p.m.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that there's a limit. I guess, I mean, if you wanted to drink tea with every meal and in between, that would be fine. There's a lot of benefits to tea and the herbs in tea, and so I wouldn't say that there's a limit. You literally could drink, like I said, a tea with every meal and in between.
Yeah, just listen to your body in
Yeah,
that case. Yeah.
exactly.
Okay. I have the question here. I'm just gonna read this out. Um, okay. It's on Copaxone for 18 years. Stopped last year. Will restart Copaxone again 3 times a week. 1 glass of red wine daily, X magnesium citrate. Am I doing a lethal decision by stopping red wine or with moderation, in addition to all the healthy approach and swank in this diet?
Yeah, so what's the question? I
So
don't
she
think.
just wants to know if it's okay to stop red wine or can she continue it in moderation? And she's also going with, I mean, main question is about the red wine, probably.
Yeah, so alcohol in and of itself can cause kind of leaky gut, right? It can be inflammatory. But
Yes.
obviously it's alcohol in excess. So when you're saying in moderation, um, 1 to 2 times a week is probably not going to have a negative impact. But at the same time, you can, again, eliminate it for a period of time and see how you feel, and then reintroduce it and then listen to your body. Like, that's the best way to determine if you should get rid of it altogether or if you should limit it. I mean, you'll know just in how your body responds.
All right. Donna, I can see lots of people, they complain about spasticity in their body
Hmm.
with MS. So, do you think that nutrition has a role to play when it comes to muscle problems, spasticity, muscle tightness,
Yeah, again, it goes back to inflammation in the joints,
and the gut
inflammation in
health?
the
Yes.
muscles.
All right.
Yes, so reducing that So I kind of like to explain it like this. When you expose your body to an inflammatory food, let's say it's gluten, you eat that every day and you only eat a little bit. But and we have our immune system is powerful. So our immune system is meant to respond to an inflammatory trigger. So a cut on your finger is an inflammatory trigger.
Mm-hmm.
A virus entering your body is an right? And so our body responds. It releases these cytokines. It releases the special forces to fight, and it's supposed to do that. But when it's done, it's supposed to turn off. So in the thought of when we're exposing our body to inflammatory foods and we continuously do so, our immune system never turns off. And this is what we refer to as chronic inflammation. So you continuously are having this, like, you're like exposing your body to this negative insult constantly, and it's constantly thinking it needs to fight. And so when you have an autoimmune condition, you don't want that. You want your
Of
immune
course.
system to calm down.
Absolutely.
And so
Rest, yeah.
that's why we recommend removing those inflammatory foods, so that, yes, that spasticity, those muscle, and those are all inflammatory responses. So by removing it from food, from environment, exposure to toxins, you're going to calm the system down. And so, yes, you should feel a relief as a result of that.
All right. Thank you for explaining that. So, Donna, there's one thing which I can say it is very, very much in debate. We all know that gluten and dairy is anti-inflammatory, and now even doctors say that you should avoid these things when you
Yeah.
have MS. There's a third thing, but that is quite much in debate. They say soya. Some
Yeah.
people say you should have or you can have because it is a good, rich source of protein. Whereas some people say soya you should completely avoid. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah. So my personal opinion, personally, I avoid it. because, these soy is a phytoestrogen. So it's like plant-derived estrogen-like compounds, okay? And so they're similar in structure, and so they can bind to our estrogen receptors, and so it could throw off hormones, especially if you have PCOS and Hashimoto's and other hormonal type diseases that it can create a bit of imbalance. The reason being, though, that soy is typically said, recommended to avoid is because majority of soy in today's world is
Mm-hmm.
genetically modified. It's processed, and it is
Yes.
known as one of the most common allergens. So processed soy is very difficult to digest, and it can cause stomach issues. It can cause that bloating, it can decrease that integrity of the gut. So if you can find pure soy that's not been processed, but the problem, I'll say over 90%, I think the statistics show, of soy that is processed. And so because of that, it is considered an inflammatory food. And so that's really kind of the debate and behind it. If you think about pure soy, technically it shouldn't be, but it is not in the case of this Western modernized world.
All right. So it is mainly because of the GM supplements in that. Otherwise, it would have been a great source. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's just
Okay.
it's not a natural, it's almost like it's hard to find it as a natural substance anymore. It's not,
All
it's
right.
been modified.
Okay. So Donna, it's been around 40 minutes we have been talking. Do you want to take a couple of more questions or
Sure.
thank you. Okay, I have this question here by Esoteric. She has written, I don't able to figure out what's the thing that I need to eliminate from my diet. Sorry. Uh, can you help? Okay, sorry. The first question was, from last 3 tests, there is a complaint of ketosis, and I don't have sugar complaint too. So can you please explain what all can she exclude from a diet?
Well, so if you're in ketosis, it sounds like you're not consuming any carbohydrates or sugar, which puts your body into ketosis, which means your body is using fat for energy as opposed to carbohydrates.
Yes. Yes.
And so if this is creating, I mean, for some people, it's fine. I don't necessarily recommend it because of the impact on the gut. And so the limitations to the microbes and the dietary fibers that you're getting from those carbohydrates that help to kind of replenish, so and feed the gut and the bacteria in the gut. So if you're having issues with your gut and you're in a ketotic state, then I would recommend switching out of that and starting to incorporate more high fiber carbohydrates, right, to help improve the integrity of the gut and just the microflora in general and the composition of the bacteria in the gut.
Right. Um, so the other question is by MS2256. She's written, what about hormone replacement during menopause? Are we able to give this answer?
I mean, that's a pretty broad
Yeah.
question. I mean, again, everybody's different in terms of hormone replacement, balancing hormones. There are natural supplements that can be used, like black cohosh and chastity tree berry, to help balance. But again, you always want to test your hormone levels. And if you're going to take supplements, retest to assess kind of the impact of what those are doing, as opposed to supplementing with bioidentical hormones. I guess I would say, I mean, personally not opposed to it, but again, I mean, it has to be under the direction of provider and monitoring your levels and, assessing the impact.
All right. So, Donna, my last question to you is about the supplements. So, you have said that you are always in a favor of having fruits and vegetables than the supplements. But
Yeah.
if someone, it's just that not everybody is having meat or anything, or not having full fruits or having lots of fiber. they need to have some kind of supplements. For example, MS patients need to have regular vitamin D,
Mm-hmm.
or people with migraine, they need to have magnesium. So what are the other kind of supplements do you think that a person can actually take on a daily basis without harming their body or autoimmune conditions?
Yeah, so vitamin D and magnesium are two big ones that are important. Another one that I always recommend checking levels, but iron is always an important one. But obviously checking your levels and then supplementing as necessary. But for MS specifically, what I'd like to focus on, and there's a lot of research on this, and it is really looking at the gut as it relates to MS. And so recommending a good probiotic to take is really important, especially in MS patients. There's a lot of studies that have shown that genetics actually play a very modest role in multiple sclerosis, where the environment really does play a major role in kind of the progression of disease. And so when we talk about diet, like I said earlier, consuming a high fiber diet helps to modulate that mucosal immune system and builds up the bacteria in the gut, which then in turn really translates to a benefit for all autoimmune patients. But there, like I said, there's a lot of data specifically to MS patients and that healthy bacteria in the gut. So, vitamin D, magnesium, a good probiotic. Honestly, if you just take a good if you're eating real foods and you want to just incorporate an additional good multivitamin in the mix, and with probiotic, you're probably good, as opposed to having like 10 different supplements that we're going to recommend.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Donna, for all your advices. It was a wonderful, wonderful session. Like I said, people were waiting to hear from you, and
Yeah,
we have been just loaded with so many questions.
I know. I can see it. I've been like trying to read them, but yes, it's a lot.
All right. Thank you so much, Donna. And everybody who's listening to us here, she's Donna, the wonderful Donna. And you can please check out her Instagram page and her website, drautoimmunegirl.com,
Yeah.
and know about Donna and her life and what she is doing. Thank you
Yes.
so much, Donna.
Thank you. And I, like you said, follow me on my page. All of these things that you guys are asking were great questions, and I'm constantly providing and posting about it to help empower you all. So thank you for your time
Absolutely.
too.
It's a wonderful page, and you really get to learn a lot of things about nutrition by
Yes,
just following her. Thank you so much, Donna, for all
absolutely.
your time.
Thank you.
All
Take
right. Have
care.
a nice
Bye-bye.
day. Bye. Thank you. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us here today. Donna is super amazing. And like I said, follow her on her Instagram page and visit her website and know more about nutrition and MS. And follow us for other fabulous sessions like this, and keep in touch. Thank you so much. Bye bye.